Hi, everybody. This is the last minute eyelash where I didn't want one. Love live video. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Jay Grunke, founder of the Balanced Runner System. And this is my next video in the Stuck at Home Running Tips video series, since we all are. So from my living room to yours, a little running form education. I was teaching my once a month advanced class this morning, which I teach actually via Zoom. I've been doing that for years. And we have a little Q&A at the beginning where, mostly people ask me which of my lessons they should do to deal with the problem that they're currently having. Nip it in the bud, hopefully, in most cases. And oftentimes my answer is a string of 3 or 4 lessons, after which, I always hope that they're going to have time to do that and may say something about that. And everybody's answer this morning was just, I've got time. That's okay. A lot of lessons. I can do it. I've got time. So there's the opportunity for you as a runner in this situation. So I hope that you're finding the time that you spend with me learning more about your running form is fruitful now and going to be so in the future. So I just finished a series of 5 videos on mastering your forward lean. 5 parts because there's so much that goes into your forward lean. Today's video is called It's Not Your Footstrike. And honestly, the issue of footstrike is just as complicated. But I've got a shortcut for you for dealing with your footstrike, which is to stop worrying about your footstrike per se, and here's something else that you can do instead. So I'm basically here working my way through what I call the keys to becoming a balanced runner, which are my list of 6 running form guidelines. So it's a list of things that you can think about and pay attention to when you run, but not try to do, because that can backfire. And I'll do a video on that as well at some point in this series, I'm sure. I suppose it depends on how long this all goes on. But anyway, to get to the point, because I'm sure you're sitting there thinking, but Jay, what am I supposed to think about if not my footstrike? And I realize maybe you have been thinking about your footstrike. If you've been running for a while, it's very likely that you have, because especially in the minimalist barefoot running boom that happened after Born to Run in 2009, there was a tremendous amount of focus around footstrike as the most important element of your running form, because research by Daniel Lieberman and others into the gait patterns of people who were used to running barefoot, habitual barefoot runners, showed a very different footstrike and very different, much lower impact. Actually, the impact, that jolt of impact that people are used to thinking about as being a natural part of running, and the thing that makes running risky and dangerous and hard on your body and why you shouldn't do it, and once your knees go, then you're done running, all that turned out not to be true. And that whole pounding impact thing doesn't even exist for people who are used to running barefoot, and for people who learn to run in a way that resembles barefoot running. And so there's tremendous focus on that for many years. And people got really obsessed about it because it was so difficult to resolve. And it is, in fact, trying to change your footstrike while you're running is like trying to change the tires on a moving car. You can't actually do it. Your feet are landing where and how they must in order to keep you from falling down, hurting yourself, landing wrong. Your footstrike is an outcome of how your whole body is moving. And so you can't manipulate it. And to the extent that you're successful in manipulating it, you either increase the stress, you make it harder to support yourself and not fall over, which is what your nervous system is most of all concerned about, and tend to run a higher risk of injury. And then beyond certain parameters, you just can't, because your foot just wouldn't be there to catch you. And so your footstrike only really changes when you change what your whole body is doing at once. So the common foot strike advice that you see, which is to avoid heel striking. So I'll demonstrate a few things here. So maybe I'll turn the other way today since I don't need the sofa. So to avoid, let me get my foot in the frame, to avoid landing on the back of your heel, to avoid overstriding. Overstriding is landing with your foot out in front of you. Those were the two big things that people were saying about your foot strike, that you should avoid those things. And instead, you should land, some people would say, on your forefoot or on your midfoot, which is more like a flat landing, and underneath your center of gravity. Now, I agree that particularly for a recreational runner, for a distance runner, by and large, a midfoot landing is a sign of things going right. Let me do a midfoot landing up here. So you're going to be, let's see, you're going to be landing kind of on this part of your foot, on the outside, because you've got an arch here. You can't really land on your arch. And the healthier and stronger your foot gets, the more you can't land on your arch because it gets higher and stronger and more arch-like. So you're going to be landing a bit on the outside of the foot and kind of just in this area. As opposed to what a sprinter does, where they're really landing on the front of the foot and the heel might not even completely come down. Sprinting is not my thing, so I can't go into more detail on that. But anyway, I know the few runners I've worked with who have been sprinters in the past who are trying to adapt to being distance runners have had a big challenge to learn to allow their heel to come down to the ground. Not to land on the heel, but to have it eventually come down to the ground rather than stay in the air. So, yes, so this advice has been to stop landing like this and start landing like this. But there's a problem in that, which is that your body is moving forward through space. And if you want to think clearly about running, you need to forget that there is such a thing as a treadmill. And you need to think about space. The ground stays still. All right. You think about the earth and don't think about outer space, because then you get into, but the whole thing is spinning. We forget about that. There's a right level of detail here, which is the ground stays still and you move, as opposed to on a treadmill where the ground is sweeping away underneath you and you are in one spot in space. And so you think about your body staying still and your legs moving, and you can no longer think clearly about running form. All right. So the ground is staying still and you are moving. Your center of gravity is moving forward. And there is a period of time. It's not a long period of time. It's a short one, but it's there. It's real between when your foot touches the ground and when you're on your foot. And so if your body is moving forward in space, it is still moving between when your foot touches the ground and when your weight is completely on that foot. And if you have your foot first touch the ground underneath you, then you are past that foot when your weight is on that foot. And that creates tremendous stress. You need to have your foot under you when you're on it, which means it must touch the ground in front of you. It's called the loading phase. It can also be called the braking phase, but you hear that term less because it has negative connotations. We want to minimize the amount of braking that occurs, of course, as in putting on the brakes, slowing yourself down. There's always a little bit of that. You want to minimize the amount of that because you want to preserve as much momentum as possible. But we'll call it the loading phase, my preferred term, where your weight is loading onto your leg. And it's a phase, it takes time. So your foot has to touch the ground in front of you the right amount for the speed that your body is moving. And you cannot possibly micromanage that consciously. So we don't worry about that. And in fact, in my next video, I'm going to talk a whole lot more about that moment and how to get into that moment when you're really on the foot. But today, I just want to talk about again, the foot strike and what to think about instead. So you have precious little control of how that foot is hitting the ground. And you can't land with your foot underneath you. You have to land with it the right amount in front of you. So how do you keep from running like this? My recommendation is that you land with a supple leg. So it's okay, and it can be okay for your heel to touch the ground. Ideally, we don't want this part of the heel touching the ground. We want it to be a little more like that. Also depends on your footwear, and if you've got if the heels are elevated on your running shoes, which they are on conventional running shoes, then that changes all of this. So again, you can't really micromanage it. But if your knee is straight when your foot touches the ground, you will be on the back of your heel. Okay? And if your knee is a little bit bent, I wore the pants with the stripe down the side so you could see that, then you won't be on the back of your heel. You'll be sort of in the middle of the heel, or even it's easier to get farther forward. And your leg won't be quite as far out in front of you. And even though the straightness of that leg at your moment of landing is regulated by your core action, which I talked about in yesterday's video, because it's a flexor extensor thing, and when the action of your flexor muscles and the action of your extensor muscles are in balance, your leg naturally is supple when you land on it. But this is one of those rare things that you can actually think about and to some extent do on purpose without running the risk of harming yourself. You can think about just letting that knee be a little bit relaxed, the leg feel a little bit looser and more supple, hence the term, when you land on it. So, know that the more you work on your core action, the better that's going to get. But when you go out running later today, if you do, or tomorrow, you can think about, can I just have my legs be a little more relaxed, a little more bent, a little more pliable when I land? And that's what I've got for you for today. So pretty simple. I am actually, like I say, in the next video, I'm going to talk with you more about having that foot under you in mid stance and the role that that plays in your gait cycle. But that video is actually going to be Monday. So today's Saturday for me here. And I have realized now this is my 6th day in a row of doing this, that I actually am going to need one day off a week from this live stream. So I'm going to take Sundays off. So no video tomorrow, but I've put all of these videos together into a playlist. I'll put the playlist link down below. So if you missed any, you want to go through, you want to see any again, go for it. There are resources for you listed in the description of each video, so lessons that you can try. So use your time tomorrow to do that. And I will be back with you on Monday with a new video, a new live stream. I see I've got Luis here today saying thank you for my advice. You're very welcome, Luis. I'm so glad that you've come and that you're enjoying this and getting some benefit from it. Oh, and Stefano too as well. Hi, Stefano. You're welcome. So anyway, thanks guys for being here. Thank you everybody for watching. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel if you haven't already so you don't miss a video. Please check out all the resources that I have for you on balancedrunner.com. Enjoy your catch-up day tomorrow, and I will see you on Monday.